You're listening to the World's Team Podcast. It's not just America's team, Cowboys Nation. It's the world's team. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Stewart and Mike Poland.
How about them Cowboys?
Welcome back to the World's Team Podcast, brought to you by the Believe Network and powered by FanDuel Sportsbook. And we're also sponsored by Cowboys Experience, your go-to for stadium tours, tailgating, and so much more. Please go to www.cowboysexperience.com and please don't forget to use the discount code WorldsTeam2025. Week 1, Thursday Night Football, Cowboys versus Eagles, banner night in Philly, a 65-minute lightning delay, Jalen Carter being an absolute idiot, spitting on Dak Prescott, and yet Dallas had a chance late, but the Cowboys fall short 24-20. I'm Paul Stewart, and I'm joined by a very special guest, a really good friend of mine, all the way from Canada. You can find him on Cowboys CanFan. It's no other than Ant. How are we doing, my man?
Man, pretty good. Considering it's not the Victory Monday Victory Friday, I should say. Not the Victory Friday we were expecting, but I'm the ultimate optimism as a Cowboys fan. Like, I'm always optimistic, and I think last night's game just played into that a little bit. I was expecting a loss. I was expecting a big loss, so I was excited to see a close game.
Yeah, like, it's kind of funny, like, when I was talking to all the guys from the UK Cowboys fans, we had the most, like, up and down scores. Like, Mike actually had it really spot on, but it was the other way about. He had the 23-20 Cowboys, but it was actually...
Wow.
Yeah, he was actually almost spot on with that. And I had 28-21 for the Cowboys, but some of the other guys had, like, bigger wins for the Eagles, like 40 plus, and I can never ever. I don't care if the Eagles could be 16-0 going into week 17 against the Cowboys, and I just could never ever pick the Eagles to win ever. I know, but we'll start off the show with we'll get the how would we put it, the drama that happened at the very start of the game, which was Jalen Carter. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. I just remember all the notifications before, because I had a bit of a delay on my feed for watching the game, and I saw on our group chat, it was like, Jalen Carter just got ejected. I was like, for what for? Like, nothing, I couldn't see anything that was like on TV that was like really, like there was a scruffle or like a, but you know, your typical Cowboys Eagles games is always going to be like, we did get to see that at some points, but I was like, what the hell happened? Then they showed you the action replay. It just went up to Dak Prescott and spat on him. I mean,
man, what a way to start the game. I love the fact that Dak went at him. Dak walks through his offensive line and goes head on head with one of the most intimidating defenders in the NFL. But to then spit on a guy, that is just such a trash move, and it's just the epitome to the Eagles to me. Like, what? It's week 1, and that's what you're going to do before the game even started. It's just such a bonehead play. It just shows the type of player you are. I would have rather you look better if you throw a punch than a spit, honestly.
Well, we did get to see that. I think Maris Leafu was grabbing Cooper DeJean's helmet, and his helmet came off. We did get to see some straps and stuff like that. Well, not proper straps, but you know what I mean. But it's your typical Cowboys Eagles game. But from the get go, like after that happened, like what happened with Jalen Carter, it seemed to kind of really light a fire under Dallas. Like, and to my surprise, first drive of the game, we ended up in the red zone and scored a touchdown. Not only just that, it was a rushing touchdown. So I'm just like, oh, okay, this is a significant improvement already from last year.
Yeah, two things the Cowboys had a lot of trouble with in 2024 were red zone efficiency and then rushing touchdowns. So to get that on the very first opening drive against the Philadelphia Eagles, I think anyone in Cowboys Nation was pretty fired up about it. Nobody, I know you play fantasy football, nobody thought Javonte Williams was going to do anything. No. And for him to have the stat line he had last night was pretty exciting, and it gives us hope. Like, do we actually have a running back that we can lean on in the red zone?
Yeah, and that's the interesting part as well. Like, this is where I kind of wished, like Phil Maffa wasn't injured. And the reason I say that, because he is that proper, like, power back. If we were in really short yardage, you can always rely on him in comparison to like some Miles Sanders, and we will get onto him later on. But I mean, Javonte Williams. I mean, let me just bring up his stat lines just now. So Javonte Williams, 15 carries, 54 yards, 2 touchdowns, was really physical throughout the whole game. Like, and I think in terms of the running backs, I think they were kind of playing more a snap count because it seemed to be one half of Williams and one half of Sanders.
Yeah, I was kind of interested to see that Jaden Blue was a healthy scratch last night because they only went into the game with the 2 running backs with Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, which, again, you said we're going to get into the Miles Sanders thing, but I don't think that will be the case next week against the Giants. That you're going to see some shakeup in the running back room, I believe. But I was surprised to only carry the 2 running backs. I didn't like it. I thought you needed that speed. You saw Miles Sanders get tracked down by a linebacker in his one big breakout run. So I still want to have that speed aspect from the running back room, but to say I wasn't surprised would be an understatement. To see Javonte Williams get those 2 touchdowns was in the first half was extremely impressive.
It was refreshing, I would say. I think that's probably the best word because we're not so used to seeing that so often. Because over the course of time, like in terms of rushing, it's like our biggest enemy was in the red zone. Rushing touchdowns was always a problem, but to see that not once but twice in the game, like it was like, okay, right, this and Schottenheimer stuck to his word. We're going to be a Russian first type of offense in a way, and we're getting to see that. So that like there's a lot of positives we can really take from this loss from Philadelphia and move forward. But going back to like some Miles Sanders, and I'll break it down. So he had 4 carries for 53 yards, and obviously had the fumble, which was really unfortunate. Like he had that big breakout run, but in terms of that kind of like increased his average. But other than that big run, it was really, really short yard gains. It was basically just meeting up to the line of scrimmage. So it's very interesting to see how we're going to rotate after this. Is Jaden Blue going to take more of that step forward and play a bigger part going into week 2?
Yeah, and I was honestly a big advocate for Miles Sanders. I liked him in Philly. Sure, he had a couple down years in Carolina, but I believe that he could get to the Cowboys and give a little bit of juice. He has the experience, but you cannot fumble that ball in that situation. I don't know if they were quite in the red zone. I want to say they were in the red zone just for sake of conversation, but you cannot put the ball on the ground in that situation.
Like, and I'm not trying to be in defense to Miles Sanders, but he did have both of his hands all wrapped up on the ball. So I don't know who it was that actually managed to loosen it off, but it must have been one hell of a strike because even he looked really distraught coming off the field. Like I said, I just can't believe that freaking happened, you know? So
It was tough. It was tough. It was definitely a punch out. And the craziest thing's talking about punch outs. How about that delay, that weather delay, man? Talk about sucking the air out of a momentum of a game.
yeah, if that was the turning point of the game, I thought because we were in full stride, even at the start of the third quarter. Like even though we only got we had Brandon Aubrey who was 2 for 2, Mr. Automatic looked great. Like, but after when that weather warning happened, it really did kill that momentum. I thought because after the game, and we will talk about the stats for Dak and CeeDee Lamb stuff, but it just kind of felt like we were just a bit more stagnated. We just couldn't get back into that rhythm again after the weather, after the
Yeah,
game commenced.
like just as a fan, if you feel it as a fan, it's hard. It must be tough for those players, right? All
Yeah.
that emotion, like you're fired up, the game's close, and then you're like, okay, let's go sit out for an hour and a half. Like that, you can't tell me that doesn't like affect a player. It has to.
Yeah, well, we clearly kind of done that. I would say for CeeDee Lamb in particular, because I mean, CeeDee Lamb 7 recorded catches for 110 yards. First half, he was gaining big yards, but the crucial drops in the second half really did cost us. George Pickens recorded 3 catches for 30 yards. I mean, steady debut, but I feel as though he didn't really get that much more involved like later in the game.
Yeah, they didn't really go his way. And is it because George Pickens, they were kind of rolling coverage to him that got CeeDee Lamb his 110 yards? That an interesting stat was CeeDee Lamb all of last year had 7 drops, all of in 2024. 2025, he already has 4. And I don't know if they count that last one on the last play of the Cowboys game where he dove for it as a drop, because I think that's a little bit unfair. But the one that was, I think, 2 minutes and 42 seconds left, CeeDee
Yeah.
Lamb running down with that post. Dak absolutely delivers a perfect ball, and it's just right off his hands. And CeeDee Lamb's probably one of my favorite players on the Cowboys, but that has to be a catch every time. You have to catch that ball.
I totally agree. Like, we can make up the excuse, yeah, if it wasn't for the drop passes and for the fumble, we would have won this game, which is, in some way, it's a fair statement. But end of the day, it happened, and the Eagles won that game. But looking at other players as well, I do want to mention Jake Ferguson as well. Like, he kind of late bloomed into the game, I feel, but there was one moment in the game where, not once but twice in the red zone. The first one was like, he got completely taken out from, I think it was, oh god, he's got a really funny surname.
Blankenship.
That's the one. That's the one. Completely took him out. Really took him out. Like, I would have thought that would have been like pass interference, and we would have been at the 1 yard line rather than being like back at the 10
Yeah,
yard line.
what that now that you bring that up, what did they call that? Like,
Oh,
there was a flag on it, but I agree. I thought the same thing. I thought it, because it happened, and then the Cowboys got the ball back, and then Miles
and
Sanders fumbled it, but they
I,
were like on the 10-yard line.
I believe it was unnecessary roughness or something like
Yeah,
that.
that was weird. That was, now that you mentioned that, because it should have, by just replaying it in my head, should have been pass interference, ball in the one, because it happened in the end zone. But yeah, they didn't call that.
Yeah, I mean, to certain levels, you could, Finlay could say, could have been somewhat targeting, because Ferguson was there. He already kind of somewhat made the catch in a way. Then he just came in and, well, I think the ball disengaged. I think the ball kind of disengaged,
Yeah,
and it
and then
was
it
left
was that's
unattended.
probably why it wasn't pass interference, but it was, yeah, shoulder to the head, you're right, unnecessary roughness, and then they just, what was it, 15-yard penalty, I guess, and not a ball foul, not a spot on the ball foul.
Yeah,
And then instantly right after that, I want to say the next play, Miles Sanders puts the ball on the ground.
oh, yeah, unfortunate. But in credit to Dak Prescott, though, he played some good defense in this game as well.
Dude, Dak, to me,
He
anyone,
saved the game in
I'm a
that
huge
way.
Dak Prescott. I'm a huge Dak Prescott fan. Like, I'm a massive Dak Prescott fan. And the way he looked last night, if we get Dak Prescott for 17 games, I'll say even 14 games, the Cowboys will be in contention for a postseason run. They will be, without a doubt in my mind.
No, I totally agree with you. Just looking just at how the team like unified together, like, and I'm gonna talk a lot about the O line on this episode, because I think we are not giving the O line a lot of credit in that game, going up against one of the top defenses in the NFL. Despite what we feel about the Philadelphia Eagles, but they are still a top defense, and they have been consistent over the course of the years. But in terms of like the offensive line, like you saw like Tyler Booker making his debut, you saw like Tyler Guyton like doing a clubber line move on one of that poor defensive end that went absolute flying, and we saw like Tyler Smith really dominating the run game. But there was one play in particular, and I think and it was while Williams was still rushing the ball. Guyton was left unattended. Well, not left unattended. He was marking his guy. Then he noticed there was a build up within the middle of the line, and they were trying to gain those extra yards. Guyton noticed that immediately and added more back power to really force the Williams to gain those extra yards, like as a wee push, essentially. I was like, okay, that shows me a lot more commitment, a lot bit more fire within this offensive line, and not just that, and like 0 sacks given up.
Yeah.
Like that's a good win, and minimum penalties. The only penalties I can really recall was Tyler Smith, obviously for that holding call, which was pretty obvious. Like, I'll give
Well,
him that.
but you got to go, like we were talking about it, super obvious holding call. But it's like, get Dak Prescott killed or tackle the guy. You know what I mean? Like, it might even be in the situation. Sometimes a good, you can have, there's a such thing as a good penalty, right? If you're completely beat and the guy's going to get tackled for 10 yards and Dak gets a clean hit on him, I mean, maybe it's not a terrible thing to do.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like, but I think with that game, it's a good confidence boost for the offensive line. It will give Dak that more reassurance going forward as well. And fingers crossed and knock on wood, nothing happens in terms of health and the injuries and that. Like, if we can retain that health of the offensive line, great debut from Tyler Booker, I thought, especially in the run game, making some good double team blocks with Cooper Beebe, I thought. Even Terrence Steele had a good, decent game, I thought. But yeah, but moving on
Paul,
to
I'm not a huge moral victory guy. Like, I don't usually believe in moral victories. Like, you
yeah,
need to win, right? But if you're going to have a moral victory, hanging with the Super Bowl champs on week 1, showing them that you can punch them in the face and stop their running game. Saquon Barkley, I think, averaged 3.3 yards a carry.
that's right. And I
If
think it was
that's
like
if
I think
if
it was like
that's not a win,
60. Yeah, that's definitely a win. Absolutely. And we'll definitely talk about that defense in a second. But I will mention just quickly Dak's statistics as well. So,
okay, let's hear it.
yep. So Dak Prescott went for 21 out of 34, 188 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 0 sacks taken. He protected the ball, stayed clean behind the offensive line, and obviously the negatives would be there was the no explosive plays when it really mattered most, but that was more down to the drop passes, I believe. So, but Ant, do you think Dak is managing games or is he missing chances to be closer?
The funny thing is, you look at a stat line, and if you didn't watch the game, you'd look at that stat line and be like, did the quarterback even do anything? But anybody that watched the game knows that Dak Prescott was the best Cowboys offensive player.
100%.
He looked comfortable. This is one thing I always had criticism of Dak. When the rush got there or something would break down, he always kind of looked panicky and kind of floppy feetish. Like, he just looked like he would panic. He did not look that at all last night. He looked calm. He looked confident, and he made the throws. If
Yeah.
those catches that were dropped are made, he's somewhere in the 2 to 250 yards, and maybe one of them goes for a touchdown. So his stat line isn't indicative of how he actually played. Dak looked great last night.
Yeah, and when you saw some of the throws he was throwing to Pickens and to Lamb in the first half, like, I wouldn't say aggressive, but there was a lot of good intent in those passes. And even there was that one play in particular where, like, the pocket did collapse and he had to kind of like move out the pocket. And unfortunately, the pass didn't really work out to Jalen Tolbert, who was in the red zone. He was really closely marked by Blankenship, I believe it was, in the red end zone. But you can see, like, we're seeing that mobility coming back to Dak Prescott. Obviously, he's kind of changed his body routine a little bit. Like, he's in a different shape compared. He's not as bulky as he was last year. So I think that's kind of going to play effect to that. And we did see that in training camp. He has kind of been running a bit of RPO as well. Is Dak going to be running a bit more with his legs going into the season? I like to think that might be the case.
Well, and I like to just think that his mindset, like, Dak is in his 10th year. The guy's seen everything. He has. He's seen everything. And he had, you said, what, 34 attempts? That's where we want him. That's what we want him, right
Yeah.
around there.
And I think that was a nice balance. We had a good balance in terms of the offense. In terms of, like, it's just unfortunate with the completions. That was the down part. That with Lamb and obviously with some of the hits to Ferguson and the drop pass the one hitting a Bond at the back of the head in the end zone. That would have been great if Ferguson made that catch.
Oh, yeah.
That I would have lost my mind if that happened.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I think the biggest takeaways, and just for the offense before we move into the defense, like, I would say it's a night and day difference compared to what we saw under Mike McCarthy last year, and I hope that continues going forward.
A first quarter touchdown, man. I was expecting a 3-and-out on their first drive, to be honest.
I
was expecting a 3-and-out.
Yep, I think everyone did. All right, so in terms of the defense, I think the biggest story for our defense is pretty much the debut of Kenny Clark. I mean, literally came to Dallas last week and he really stepped up. So I'll just highlight some names here. So Marshawn Nealand with the 1 sack, did a really good job out there. Kenny Clark, he was disruptive inside. He was part of the assistance of that sack as well. Solomon Thomas at the end of the game really showed and added more to that interior defensive line. Sam Williams in some way did flash a little bit, but inconsistent finishing. I do have high hopes for Sam Williams going forward, but the negatives, obviously, Jalen Hurts. He was 19 for 23, 152 yards passing, 62 yards rushing, and he scored the 2 touchdowns. That's the problem where we had our defense. I don't know about you, Anne, but I kind of feel like when our pass rush was like basically was isolated and occupied by their offensive line. Our spy was just nowhere to be seen.
I don't even
And
like. There was a couple times like on one of the touchdown or even one of the Jalen Hurts runs. It's like just put Damone Clark. Damone Clark wasn't even doing anything in coverage. Just have him spying, right? Jalen Hurts is going to get scrambling. And I noticed that Eberflus kind of shifted what he was doing in the second half, or at least at the end of the second half. He started to bring pressure. He started to bring five guys because they were bringing the four. Jalen Hurts would drop back and he would just pick apart the defensive line wherever they. Ezeraku, sure, the guy might be really good. You could see that he was a rookie last night. He wasn't holding his gap. A guy like Fowler Jr. wasn't holding his contain. And Jalen Hurts is going to kill you if you don't hold the contain. And the one saving grace is Jalen Hurts there's not many NFL quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, right? He's going to be able to pick up those yards and run for touchdowns. Luckily, we're not going to see that a whole bunch. So I'm still happy with what the defensive line did. And if you told me last Thursday that the Cowboys were going to hold the Eagles to 24 points on opening night, I would have been ecstatic.
I think that's the biggest takeaway of them all. I think especially our biggest weakness. Like I was saying this to Mike, and unfortunately, obviously, Mike's not here for this episode. He's unavailable, but he will be back next week. But my thoughts was before the game, it's like if we can, like our biggest weakness biggest question marks was defensive line, especially in the interior, our running backs, which we improved on, our defensive linemen improved. And in terms of the depth, in terms of cornerback, which I thought we kind of isolated AJ Brown quite a lot. Like there was only one or two big plays, and that was it. But other than that, we really isolated their passing game quite a lot.
Oh man, the cornerback room was one of the, like you said, one of the biggest question marks. Obviously, getting Trevon Diggs back was a huge part of that. No, it was kind of a question mark. We didn't know how Trevon Diggs was going to look. Right, he missed most of training camp out on the PUP, but then was brought back to the active roster last week. He played quite a bit. Deron Bland looked nice. Career Elam, the newcomer from Buffalo, looked pretty decent. And like you said, I think the only really big play was that Dodson catch. But as far as A.J. Brown goes and Devontae Smith goes, they didn't let them beat them. And that's promising because they are ranked as one of the top probably 5 wide receiver tandems in the NFL. So to see the Cowboys cornerbacks be able to hold them, sure, we might not have the best depth behind the Cowboys starting cornerbacks, but stay healthy and the Cowboys cornerbacks will compete.
Yeah. I don't know what you think about this. I was quite surprised not to see as much of Maris Leafu in the defensive snaps, which to me, like he is the main guy in this is my personal opinion from what I've seen of Leafu. He is a pure study of the game. Like he does react and read how the play develops. Is probably as best as anyone that can be on that linebacker unit, I think, because he uses that to compensate with his size and his strength, because he always seems to be there at the right place at the right time, but we didn't get to see enough of him.
Yeah, we were surprised. We were huge Leofau fans, like big Leofau fans. I found last season when Overshown went out with the injury, I was really nervous because Overshown obviously was a fan favorite. But I found that Maurice Leofau came in and stepped up and had quite a good end to the season. He was probably one of the promising players going into that end stretch for the Cowboys. And I said the same thing. I was like, why aren't we seeing Leofau out there? Today when we did our post show of the game last night, we went through PFF, and 2 of the lowest ranked defensive players for the Cowboys were Kenneth Murray and Jack Sanborn. So I'm like, at some point, you got to get Leofau in there. Like maybe shift him up, get him out there.
Yes.
I want to see Leofau out there.
Yeah,
Luckily, we're having this conversation, right? We have depth at
absolutely.
linebacker finally, but it's like he's a dude that needs to be on the field.
Yeah, and not to mention as well, like we were talking about before the game, there was the elevation of Ryan Flournoy, then there was Buddy Johnson, who I thought had a great preseason. Like, if he can get opportunities as well, I think that 5 linebackers, that's a good rotation that we've got in terms of that. So, but in terms of like the defense as well, what's the next steps to do? Because obviously our main concerns was like our pass rush, like we weren't as effective that we would kind of hope to be. But the way I'm kind of seeing it, Ant, is like when you look at all these previous defenses that have kind of won the Super Bowl, that's never had that anchor point like your Micah Parsons or your Joey Bosa's or Nick Bosa's. they've had that more collective like understanding. They all still do their job as one all unit. Like there's never going to be a standout. Do you think that might be the case this season? Because 1 week it might be Sam Williams, 1 week it might be Izaraku. Do you think that might be the case?
I'm fine with that, man. I think collectively, as long as the team can kind of, and I'm going to bring up Micah Parsons, if the team can collectively make up for the sacks that we lost from him, but you saw it last night. The Cowboys' defensive line didn't look bad. They didn't look bad. You're playing against the best running back in the NFL, arguably, and probably the best mobile quarterback in the NFL.
Don't forget their offensive line with Lane Johnson.
And they're playing against you got 3 Pro Bowlers on that offensive line. So sure, people could be quick to say, "Oh man, you're not getting the sacks," or blah 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 with Micah. But I'm not a big moral victory guy, but everything I saw from the Cowboys last night makes me extremely optimistic going forward.
I think that's definitely the best positive we can really think of. Like, it sucks to lose to our divisional rivals, our most hated rivals, let's be fair. But there's a lot of good things we can really take from this game. Yeah, there is some negatives, but they can easily be improved as the season goes along. Like the drop passes, etc. It's all about the mindset. Personally, I think that might be what it is. Like the whole stop and start with the weather, the lightning, really, I think really played a big, massive factor going into this game.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. And going forward, man, like I hate to be the New York Giants because I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to come out and I think they're going to lay a whooping on the New York Giants next week. I really do. I'm going to call it early. I think they put up 40 points against them next week. I really do.
Oh, I hope that's
my boldy. That's my boldy. I think it's happening.
That's your boldy? Oh, man. Maybe a wee bit early to do our boldies because we've got a pre-game show with Mike Fisher coming on next week.
Nice.
So
the fish.
The fish. So that'll be very interesting to see what his bold predictions will be. So I'll be very intrigued by that. But yeah, man. But before we do go, Mike, is there anything? No, Mike. Mike's not here.
I can be Mike. I can be Mike if you want me to be.
If you want to put on the accent, that's great. But before we do go, like, just let us know where everyone can find you.
I'm part of the trio Cowboys Can Fan. Yeah, just pretty much Cowboys Can Fan all over social media. It's literally what we are on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all the social platforms at Cowboys Can Fan. We do live streams, we do weekly shows, and football season's back, man. So this is our next 6 months, man. This is where we all thrive, right, Paul?
Absolutely. And not just that, congratulations on reaching 20,000 subs, by the way.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, folks. But yeah, that is the end of this episode. But before we do, is there anything else you want to mention about the game before we finish up?
I'm excited. I know it's a loss, and I've said it probably 3 times already. I don't believe in moral victories, but I'm excited for the season.
Yeah, there we go. There we have it, Cowboys Nation. Yes, it's a loss. Yes, against the Eagles, but there is potential upside to this. There's a lot of good positive we can take from this game and move forward and get behind Brian Schottenheimer and get behind our Dallas Cowboys. But yes, folks, we will be back next week. We will be having a pre-game show. Mike will be back, and we will be having Mike Fisher on the show as well. So be sure and stay tuned for that. But like as always here on the World's Team, it's not just America's team. It is the World's Team.
The World's Team, baby.
We'll see you guys next time.
That's a wrap on the World's Team Podcast. Smash that like button and hit subscribe, Cowboys Nation. This ain't just America's team, it's your team.
Touchdown!
It's the World's Team, only on Believe, where real fans live.
How about them guys?